Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another episode of the strategy series. This time, we're going to talk about card advantage and card economy in Dragon Ball Super. So, this is going to be a video geared much more towards new players, although if you are an experienced card game player, you might be able to refresh your memory or pick up a few new things from this video, just going over the real raw kind of advantage that this game has. And that's why I really like Dragon Ball Super. I came from Yu-Gi-Oh, where cards one card can turn into a broken board of 5 different creatures. Let's just say, if you don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, you turn one guy into 5 guys just by playing him down. And so Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't really teach you about card economy. It doesn't teach you how to conserve cards and trade cards efficiently. It did back in older formats, but current day Yu-Gi-Oh not so much. And that's what I really like about this card game, is that it teaches you how to conserve cards and trade resources with your opponent very efficiently, because if you don't do that efficiently, you get punished very, very hard just by the nature of the game. So I'm going to use this little octagon example here to try and teach you guys about card economy, card advantage, and virtual advantage. So before we do get into this video, guys, if you're new to the channel, hitting that sub button would be super awesome of you guys. Giving this video a like if you like at the end as well would be awesome. And if you guys want to talk about anything Dragon Ball Super related with a great community, we have a Discord server down in the description below. Definitely check them out, because I've never met a group of more helpful people for this game. And finally, guys, if you are a longtime friend of the channel or think that I deserve your support, check out my Patreon in the description as well. That just helps me bring you guys this content that you know and love. If you guys help me out, I can keep bringing you guys this content, which is what I really, really want to do. So with that being said, quick little intro, we'll get into this video. So we're gonna have to start by defining 3 terms. So what am I talking about? We're talking about card economy. So your card economy are the cards that usually make up your let's just say I have this guy on board. Your card economy makes up the cards between your board and your hand. Some people will usually sometimes exclude your board state as well, and they'll consider card economy from hand, so that's a little bit interchangeable. But most of the time, it's going to be what's on your board and in your hand. But you might people talk about hand advantage or hand economy. They're talking about the hand, but overall card economy is between your board and your hand. So right now, my overall card economy is 5. I have 1 battle card on the board, and I have 4 cards in my hand. As far as Dragon Ball Super is related, that's a pretty low card economy, not optimal, but this is just for the sake of example, so bear with me on that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is card advantage. So when we're talking about card advantage, you're usually comparing the number of cards between you and your opponent. So again, this can be compared just in the case of hand advantage. So if we looked at my advantage between my opponent's advantage, let's just say all these face down cards here are my opponent's hand, and these 4 cards are my hand. So my opponent has 6 cards in hand, I have 4 cards in hand, I have -2 in terms of card advantage to my opponent. My opponent is +2 on me. You'll hear that a lot. Pluses and minuses just determines how many more or less cards you have than your opponent. If you make your opponent go minus, just like this Chile over here does, if you guys know what this Chile does, it makes your opponent go minus in card advantage when you pop one of their battle cards. So that's a little bit about card and hand advantage. And board advantage, same idea. I am at 1 card to my opponent's 2, so they have a +1 on me in board advantage. And overall card advantage, counting their board and their hand, they have 8 cards total. I have 5 total, so they are at a +3 on me in overall card advantage. Now, important note, you don't usually count energy in this, because energy, while energy is a resource, you look at energy in kind of a different way. You kind of look at more at what your opponent has standing, also what turn they're on, so what access they have plays to. But an overall raw advantage, typically you're just going to look at the board state and the hand state, not typically going to count energy in that field. So what's the final term we have to kind of define? That's virtual advantage. So virtual advantage, it's not really, that's why it's called virtual. You can't really see it straight up. Virtual advantage has a lot to do with tempo and how you can kind of turn the tide of the game in your favor. If you can play with virtual advantage well, you will be able to pick up a deficit back up. Like let's say I'm in a deficit right now. I'm at 5 cards to my opponent's 8. If I play this game well, and also if my opponent tends to make a misplay, I can play the virtual advantage game really, really well. So we'll just get into some basics of card advantage versus virtual advantage. So let's say my opponent was playing, there's no leader here because I'm too stupid to figure out how to load another deck onto the other side, but let's say my opponent had a leader that attacked my leader and drew a card, like most leaders in this game do. A lot of leaders say attack your opponent's leader, draw a card. Let's say they have that, right? They attack my leader, they draw 1. So let's just say I look at my deck and I add 1 to their hand, just for the sake of doing this. They draw 1, right? So they've gone +1 in card advantage, right? So let's say I do the same thing. Let's say it goes back to my turn. I draw a card. So, and then I usually would charge, but I'm not going to charge here. So now my leader attacks and it mills 2. So what does mill 2? So let's say I attack with my leader. I mill 2 cards, send them to my drop area. This is Octagon, by the way, if you guys don't know what this online client is. Really helpful for online playtesting. So my leader, I've bursted 2, I discard 1. So let's say I discard this Borgos, which my leader can't do, but for the sake of the video, this is what I want to set up with. My leader attacks, I discard 1. So right now I'm -1 in card advantage. I've just lost a card from my hand, but the rest of the leader's effect, draw 2 cards, right? So 1, 2. So I just drew 2 cards. Now there's some math involved here, in case you guys, are a little bit slower with math. That's okay. That's what I'm here for. I've discarded 1 card and I've drawn 2 cards. So if I take the difference of that, I have gained a net of 1 card. So I've also gone +1, just like my opponent did when they attacked with their leader. They attacked with their leader, they drew 1. I attacked with my leader, I discarded a card, drew 2. I also milled 2 from my deck, but typically you're not going to take that into account when you're looking at card advantage. You're not looking at cards from your deck. You're looking at the cards you can immediately play with. Now, there's a difference here actually between my virtual advantage and my opponent's virtual advantage. So here in the virtual advantage scenario, in the raw advantage scenario, we've both +1'd. That's the matter of the fact. In terms of virtual advantage, my leader has better virtual advantage because I've turned 1 card into 2 new cards. That's why like Harudegarn is so good and Hoy is so good. These cards that turn dead cards in your hand into more new cards. They filter through your deck faster. That's another part of virtual advantage. So my leader has effectively has a boost in virtual advantage because I've turned 1 card into 2 cards, where my opponent's leader only draws 1 card. Now we're going to look at how different battle cards can turn into different pluses. So let's say it's my turn. I have 4 energy standing up. I want to generate a +1. Very easy. I tap this blue down. I play down this Borgos. What does Borgos say? When you play this card, draw 1 card. So draw. So this Borgos has just generated me an overall +1. However, my hand advantage has remained the same. But that's very important in this game. Like if I played a battle card down, let's say some random vanilla beater, right? If I played some random vanilla beater down, my hand size would decrease by 1, and I would only have a better board presence. And I wouldn't have what Borgos gives, which is board presence and a draw 1, and that just eventually becomes a 5k combo power. Then you take into account Borgos's effect, which is very incredibly good virtual advantage, floodgating my opponent out of making offensive untapping plays. So that's kind of a simple explanation of generating advantage. I'm going to do a whole video on comboing in the future, but that's why super combos are like the unspokenly best cards in the entire game, because super combos, they allow you to combo without losing advantage, at least for the most part. So for example, if I wanted to defend a life on my leader, I would usually combo this Borgos away for a -1. Most comboing in this game, especially a little chip damage, you're going to combo the Borgos, you're going to take a -1. But as far as a card like your super combo goes, you super combo, you draw a card. That's a way to maintain advantage. This upside down card is the final showdown Son Goku, by the way. I don't know why it's not loaded on my Octagon, but that's besides the point. So that's a little bit more about advantage. That's why super combos are so good, because they help you maintain advantage while you're trying to defend hits from your life. That's why like Janemba is so good at being turtley. That's why the pseudo super combos are so strong. Now let's say I have a restarted turn. Let's just say I throw this down and charge, right? So now how can I generate a -1 to my opponent? How can I make them lose a card? Well, I've got this fledgling duo Krillin in my hand. When he comes into play, I tap 4 for him. When he comes into play, I can choose one of my opponent's battle cards, KO it. So that's going to cause my opponent to lose a card. So if I KO this Figure of Majesty, let's just put it over here for a second, I have essentially -1 to my opponent in overall card economy. Their hand size has stayed the same. There's no difference in our hand parity. However, overall between hand and board, they have lost a card. Similar to like if I had Chile on my board, my opponent would have to discard a card on top of losing their Shenron. So that would be a -2 to my opponent, which is one of the reasons why Chile is a really good card. But that's kind of how card economy works. Now, again, virtual advantage, a card like Shenron Figure of Majesty, let's say I haven't dropped the Krillin yet, a card like Shenron Figure of Majesty has huge potential for virtual advantage as well as raw advantage, because the longer this card sits out on the board, the more advantage it will generate my opponent over time. Every single turn this card lives, he draws a card and does something busted. So that's where the virtual advantage comes in, is where he does something busted. So he either untaps 2 energy from my opponent, basically putting them at a couple turns ahead or just giving them more plays. He can bring back a card, so he basically adds more board pressure, or can revive super combos, which leads to more draws, or he can give a battle card crit, so that can deny me advantage in the future, leading it to be something considered virtual advantage. So now let's take another virtual advantage scenario. Let's just say I give my opponent this Krillin. Let's say that my opponent has this Krillin on the board, right? Let's say they pop one of my guys. So I've lost a card in card economy, essentially, overall. So now let's say I want to make a big swing in card economy here. I want to start, you know, plussing back cards or preventing my opponent from negging me cards. So let's just say my opponent misplays or they don't see the negate coming, anything like that. You can kind of play around with it. Let's say I'm tapped out, but I have 5 in my drop area. So let's say my opponent attacks with the fledgling duo Krillin at my leader. They're trying to push damage. Let's say they gave it crit with a Shenron, let's just say. So that's a 20k crit at my life. Relatively good swing. You know, any crit at life is relatively good. So now I'm tapped out on green. Let's say my opponent makes a misplay here. I can make a big comeback in virtual advantage. So I can, since I have Sparking 5, I can negate with Shocking Death Ball. So essentially, Shocking Death Ball is going to, let's just say this is a card for my life, is going to draw me a card. So I've gone even on the exchange. I'm going to lose the Shocking Death Ball. I'm going to take a card from my life, meaning I equal out on the exchange. And then my opponent is going to lose their Chile, because what does Shocking Death Ball do? When you negate the attack, you can destroy a 2-drop or less. So they lose a Chile. Let's just send it to the graveyard. So there, I've gained a card. They've lost a card. So that's going to be a +1 for me overall in card economy. And in virtual advantage, this is huge, because Chile is actually a threatening 15k swing, and I prevented that swing with the Shocking Death Ball. And I've also prevented myself from losing more cards from my hand now that Chile is off the board, because Chile's kind of lingering effect won't apply anymore. So that's an example of a huge tempo swing in virtual advantage. This Shocking Death Ball has eventually become a +2 because I stopped one attack where I don't have to lose any more cards remaining from comboing. I drew a card off my life with that ability, and I popped the Chile, preventing another attack. So that's kind of looking, that's what people call a 2-for-1. When a card comes in and kind of serves multiple purposes, or negs your opponent multiple times, or kind of just halts their plays in a big way. So other examples of 2-for-1s are like much more simple. So if you have like the Gogeta 5-drop on board, or you summon it from your hand rather, you make your opponent lose 2 battle cards. That you are playing 1 battle card. That's actually a 4-for-1, which is actually insane. Let's just say you play it down, you spin 2 of your opponent's battle cards back to the bottom of the deck. So they've lost 2 cards while you're still the same advantage in card economy. You haven't lost any cards yet. Gogeta actually comes down and draws you 2 cards. So that's actually a 4, because you've gained 2 and your opponent has lost 2. So overall, you can say you've +4 technically, even though your opponent negged 2 and you +2'd. And then you still have the Gogeta body on the board. So that is actually a 4-for-1. You're trading in 1 card, which still is on the board and is a very threatening swing, and you've essentially gained 4 cards in economy, which is really, really solid. So guys, with all that being explained, that's one of the big reasons I'm a really big fan of this card game, and it's my favorite card game to date, is that you just have to play your advantage well, and most decks can do that. That's why certain decks are so strong, like Cell Chain or like Shenron Hand Control, Chain Zeno, decks like that. Any deck that can remove advantage in this game, you might think to yourself, well, why are these decks so good? Obviously, you know, it's obvious to the eye that they do a really busted thing. They take advantage away, and that's why they're so good, is because they take advantage away. Once you get to like the card game science of it, that's why they're so strong, is that they take advantage away. So that's one of the big things in this game, is how to play your advantage appropriately, how to play it to the best of your ability. And I hope I gave you guys some good examples right then and there. Hopefully from this video you guys learned about what pluses and minuses are, how to generate pluses, how to generate big swings in virtual advantage against your opponent. Hopefully you guys have learned different things like that. I use the example format to try and do that the best way I could, instead of like making a PowerPoint and like trying to be a professor to you guys. So if you have any questions about any of the stuff I went over, definitely drop a comment down in the description below. I'll gladly go into more depth about that. That's one of the reasons why my Patreon is so great too, is because sometimes doing this stuff in written form, it's a little bit easier to explain. And I do have a lot of competitive articles on the Patreon. Right now we're going over a lot over matchup knowledge, which we actually just covered Shenron Hand Control this morning. And that's going to be a big one where you have to talk about pluses and minuses. So I'd recommend you guys really check that out if you guys are looking to get more knowledge and more information about card economy and card advantage and pluses and minuses, things like that. That's a really important article for this exact topic. I do want to do another comboing efficiency video in the future. I did one a long time ago when the channel first started, and I'm not going to lie, the quality of it was a little lower than I would like to give you guys now. So I'm going to redo that, essentially kind of teach you guys some better methods of comboing. That's probably going to come next week, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, once again, if you guys have any questions, please do drop those down in the comments below. I want to, you know, increase your knowledge pool in this game any way I can. I'll give you guys the most lengthy responses in the comments. So definitely let me know if you guys have any questions. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Joey. This is Carlton TCG. I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and I'll see you guys next time.
Hold up. You're still here? I already gave you a video, man. I'm just trying to chill, do weave stuff, play Minecraft. Give me a sub up above. Watch some other videos and, shoo, fly.